This is the face of an unrepentant criminal who keeps trying to eat my plants. You're naughty. Hi, I'm Kayla Mando. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I'm doing the writers are weird tag. It's April and I'm trying really hard to get all of my pre-planning stuff done so that for May I can jump right into revising my manuscript, which means that I have a lot of finicky, brain-hurty outlining work that I need to get done, and I just want something that's easy to film and isn't gonna ask too much of me mentally. So bear with me, it's a tag week. I first saw this on Erin J. Doyle's channel and I will link it up above. So question one is, do you have bizarre internet searches, and if so, what's the weirdest one? I definitely do, because I write paranormals, both romance and snarky monster hunter, which means that not only am I looking up all the supernatural stuff, but I'm also typically gonna have a fist fight as my climax, which means I tend to look up, like, what would happen if you got stabbed in the spleen? I think my weirdest searches probably come from my necromancy book. I looked up a lot of things like, what happens to your eyes when you die? How long did they take to cloud over? But also because it involved a lot of donor corpses, like organ donor corpses, one of the questions that I needed to solve was whether or not getting a bone marrow transplant would change the recipient's DNA. And for the record, it does. Your blood DNA would be different than your skin or spit, which is cool and weird. Question two is, do you write people you don't like into your stories as villains or dumb people that you can kill off? And I don't really. I think I used to when I was quite a bit younger, but for the most part now, I want my villains to be interesting and not just assholes who I didn't like in real life. So while I might want to pull a Geoffrey Chaucer in A Knight's Tale and eviscerate my enemies in fiction, it's not really how it works for me. So question three is, does personal hygiene take a backseat to writing? Not really. I guess when I'm having like a writing day or a writing weekend, I'm a bit more unkempt. Like, I won't brush my hair, I'll just throw it in a braid or put it in a messy bun. But I'm not like dirty. I'm just wearing sweatpants and a hoodie instead of like going out in the world people clothes. So if you mean hygiene like grubbiness, no, not really. If you mean hygiene like putting together a polished look, for sure. If it's just me and my computer, I don't give a shit about makeup. So question four is, do you go to baby name websites to find names for your characters? And not really. I definitely have. Nameberry is a really good one, and Alphabet Zoop used to be one of my favorites back in the day. I don't even know if that one's still around. But for the most part, I just kind of have a running list of names that I like the sound of. I keep it hidden in one of my secret wikias. In my job, I actually see a ton of names every day, and while it would be super unethical for me to just steal a full name from one of the kids that I work with, I do tend to pick up like cool last names or interesting first names and kind of just aggregate them together in a list that I can pick and choose from later. Question five is, do you have a list of actors and actresses who you'd want to play your characters if there was ever an adaptation? Kind of. A lot of my answers to this are kind of. I definitely have actors and actresses who I think look like my characters and who might be used as inspiration for my characters, because I'm not necessarily a very visual person. When we talked about the ways that fanfiction has failed me, I think that should have been made clear. So having an actor or actress who I think embodies the physicality of my character helps me to describe them more complexly and completely, but I don't necessarily want them to play them in an adaptation. Because for the most part, I don't really think about my books getting an adaptation to TV or film. Although I do have one story that I specifically want to write as a TV show, which I probably never will. It's just sort of kicking around in my brain. Question six is, have you ever stared at a stranger in public because they look like one of your characters? No? I might note that someone looks like one of my characters, or note that I would like to have a character who looked like them, but I would hate it if someone just stared at me in public, so I try not to do that to anyone else, even if they did look like my character. So question seven is, do you talk to yourself when you're working through a scene, and if so, where do you do it? And unfortunately, I do. I tend to sort of mutter along to myself about what it is that I'm writing, not necessarily narrating the whole process, but sort of telling myself where I need to go next. It won't be uncommon for me to like remind myself of something as if I'm reminding someone else. But it's not just my writing. I do that with errands and work and grocery lists and all kinds of other things as well. I try not to do it in public because, again, I don't really want to be perceived by strangers, but the quarantines have definitely made it worse. Question eight is, while writing, do you make the expressions that your characters are making? Kind of. If I'm trying to figure out what their face is doing so that I can describe it, I might actually make the face, or if they're going to move in a certain way, I might position my body that way to try to figure out what it is that they're doing. But for the most part, I don't want to be like making weird faces, and I tend not to take on their emotional energy that much. But when I'm writing essays in school, I do, and I definitely had a professor who was like commenting on it after a final that I took. I guess I was on a facial journey during the essay portion, and she like said that it was funny watching me, and then I felt weird about it afterwards. So like, if you see someone doing that, don't talk about it. Question 9 is, do you ever practice interview questions in case you make it big? And I don't know if it's an in case, it's not like I'm preparing myself for my eventual interviews, but I do definitely indulge the fantasy of having made it big and people asking me about my books and how I write them or my opinions on things. I don't know if it's so much an interview question as daydreaming about my eventual Comic-Con panel or fan conventions. So question 10 is, do you have a soundtrack and or playlist for your book or scenes from your book? And I definitely do. For the most part, I've been listening to the Werewolf playlist by Spotify user, I want to say Canis Latrans. My Latin pronunciation is very bad. I will link it down below. It's just kind of a vibey, atmospheric werewolf playlist, and Where Mountain Lions is a little niche to find something really specific to it, so I'm happy to settle for werewolves. While I don't love all of the songs on it, and Werewolves of London isn't on it, which I think is a real oversight, for the most part, it's a good playlist, and I'm happy to just sort of not focus on it as I'm writing and get the general vibes from it. The only scene-specific playlist I had is for my sex scenes, which is kind of weird because writing sexy stuff has not traditionally been difficult for me. I wrote a lot of smutty fan fiction for years and never struggled with it, so I didn't expect to struggle with it in this book, but here we are. So I do have a Kira and Alex Sexy Time playlist, which is kind of moody and vibey and gets me into the right space to try to write those scenes. I will link it down below, but it makes it very, very clear that I was a teen goth in the early 2000s, so you're not allowed to judge me for it. So this was a ton of fun. I really love talking about my books and my writing process and all of the stuff that goes into it. If you want to do the tag, I will leave all of the questions down below, and you definitely should. I would love to see your version. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, do that good engagement shit. And if you were looking for me anywhere else, you can find me pretty much everywhere as Kayla Amanda. That is KaylughManda. If you were looking for this very naughty cat anywhere, she has an Instagram, which is spookandmin. That is Min with 2 N's. And we will see you next time.